Hello everyone, my name is Victor Fagans, and today, this video is about the homework assignment, some guidelines about the homework assignment about using Dplyr. And so let me share the assignment here. So, right, this assignment, you'll find yourself using the Dplyr package to mutate and filter data frames. So there's a lot of functionality to Dplyr. So this homework assignment will just give you a small taste of kind of what simple tasks you can do with Dplyr. And so similar to before, you'll be creating an R script file where you'll be putting in your code as well as your answers to the questions. So for example, here, the first question is about documentation. So similar to the last homework assignment, I want you to explore the documentation of the mutate function and the filter function. And you can also look at the Dplyr website. So when you're using packages, right? So imagine a package is right, a toolbox, right? There are resources online that can tell you what tools do in that toolbox, right? What the functions do inside the package, and that can be really helpful, right? So as we're learning more and more functions and being introduced to different packages, right? It's really hard for us to memorize how everything works, and so we constantly have to get into the habit of let me check the documentation, let me make sure I'm using this correctly. It's only through experience does then it really becomes innate where you're like, oh yeah, I know how this function works, right? But when you don't have that experience, you have to have the habit of checking the documentation and making sure you're using a function correctly. So in the homework assignment, the first questions, I want you to just look at the documentation of the mutate function and the filter function to write down kind of what they do, right? As simple as that. And then the second section here, I have logic, and I want you to just, so these are various logic expressions, right? So they're not R code, right? These are just expressions, right? If we ran this code in R, like age less, or, well, I don't want to give the answer, but yeah, less than or equal to 18, we run that code in R, age is going to get an error because age, is like you'll get an object, age doesn't exist error, right? So I just want you to put these expressions and write in regular words what they mean, right? So when you read this expression, what does that tell you? What is the question this expression is evaluating to? Like, what does it mean, right? And so these six expressions are all logical expressions, right? So they'll output true or false, right, depending on the values. But I just want you to think like in human language, what are these expressions? Next, we're going to talk about mutates. So mutate is just going to do some practice, some creating new columns, as well as doing some processing and cleaning. So for example, we'll be using the if else statement to replace the blank values with NA. We'll be using another column to create averages of columns. And then filter, this one is going to need some guidelines. So I have this, I want you to create different data sets for each parent education. So there's 6 backgrounds. Students have 6 education backgrounds for their parents. And I want you to create 6 different data frames for each parent education outcome. And so here I give you the first one and I give you the last one. And I put these dot 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 in the middle here to show like, okay, what would be the logic expression for that, what would be for the next one, high school education, right? And so on and so forth. So this is just the template, right? And I want you to fill in the blanks to create those other data frames, right? So in total, you'll need 6. And then the same thing with the mean, right? I show you how to do the mean for the first one and the last one, but what are the ones in the middle, right? So you'll have to type in that code yourself. And then I want you to compare those means, right? So the final question in the filter section is once you've separated the data frame into students by each parent education, and then you calculate the average reading score for each of those groups, I want you then to compare them and see, which one's the highest and like, does that make sense? And then the challenge question, you'll find yourself, I didn't provide any code templates for challenge question, but it's basically, I want you to explore the group by function and the summarize function in Dplyr to see if you can figure out how to use these two functions to answer these questions, create a data frame as well as calculate the average, particularly calculating the average, right? Because this process for creating 6 data frames is kind of lengthy, or like it's a lot of code, right? Imagine if we had 12 backgrounds, 100 backgrounds, right? We don't want to have to filter every single time for each background. And Dplyr has solutions to that problem with the group by function and the summarize function. And I would like you to explore those functions to see if you can figure out what those functions do and if you can use them to answer that question, right? Calculate the means for each parent education group, right? And so this challenge is trying to get you to train and get into that habit of let me look for new functions to use. Let me see if I can learn how a new function works, right? Because as we're working in R, we're constantly going to be introduced to new functions. We're constantly being introduced to new packages. And so that skill of being able to let me learn how this function works is very valuable. And that's what ultimately will give you the success when using R, is that ability to grow and learn new things after you learn the foundations, but now you want to learn new things. So that's what this challenge section is trying to get to, for you to on your own explore the group by and summarize functions to see if you can use them to answer, find the means for each parent education, right? And similar to before, right, this is going to be in the lab links document. I moved the due date a little later, so it's not going to be on Wednesday, it's going to be on Friday. I know I was a little late to giving this assignment out to you guys, so I'm giving you guys some extra time. And of course, the guidelines link to the video will be, as soon as I'm done with this video, I put it there. And like before, feel free to ask any questions on Slack. Feel free to reach out to me if there's any problems, if you see any typos or anything like that. Feel free to reach out. And that's the homework assignment. So getting you to start using Dplyr and getting you familiar with some of those base functions that Dplyr has. All right. Thank you.